Well, I'm oh hey, sorry. Just was filling out my application to McDonald's, so don't mind me. Welcome back. Welcome to Frugal BC here, and yeah, we've got an interesting show for you today. Yeah, things are looking looking great right now. We're gonna put it in perspective today, though, because I think there's two aspects to consider on this, and I think both sides are kind of missing the other side of it. So we're gonna dive into that today. Masked Mage saying R.I.P. Algo going back to 10 cents. Yeah, we'll see. Well, I mean, it's going to generally follow what everything else is following. So we're going to dive into, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of takes, and we're going to parse through some of them and see what is going on. So, welcome back everyone. Hope you're watching. And all right, today we are on YouTube, and we are on Kick, and we are on Twitch. So I'm going to try out both of those and see where we get more viewers, what seems to work out better. I've been trying Kick for a while, and honestly, it's really hard to get any kind of traction on Kick. I've noticed it's I don't know. I think it's maybe I'm just the wrong demographic for it. I'm not really sure, but not much happening on there. I thought I'd try Twitch out and see if there's maybe a little more traction I can get, which means no X. So I just realized I have to post that over on X, but otherwise, how's everyone doing today? Well, let me know how you're doing in the chat. I want to hear what people have going on. You know, the thing about Twitter, the thing about X is you get like you get a ton of viewers. I mean, my X viewership will be far more by a ton than all the other platforms combined. But you get like nothing. You get nothing for it, and people don't really react very much. There's not a lot of. I get way more. YouTube is still. I still get way more comments from uh, from YouTube than any other platform. So it's really interesting. So I'm just going to put this out here on X really quick to let people know I am streaming over here. Give me a second. There, show me your pity says elect a clown, expect a circus. Well, we definitely elected someone who is doing some crazy stuff. That's for sure. Uh, we'll dive into all that. All right, I just had to put this out on the X's here. We're gonna dive into the charts and everything and look what's going on. Mostly focusing on the utility coins, which is kind of our thing here. That's what we do. But yeah, before we do that, guys, if you feel like this kind of content, please hit that like and subscribe button. And as I always say, you don't have to smash it. You can just press it gently. It works just fine that way too. Getting that like button will help get this live stream out there. We want to get it to more people so we can talk about what's going on and maybe make some sense of it. I got stuff on both sides of the tariffs, by the way. Like I said earlier when I started this, we are going to talk about both the upsides and downsides. We're going to look, because I think there's a short-term view and a long-term view, and I think we have to kind of separate those two. So we're going to do that. So, you know, get this out there, hit that like button, and let's grow this a little bit. It's been interesting to watch people react to this, because I mean, the two prevailing things I see is, you know, the knee-jerk reaction of holy crap, the the markets are tanking, what is happening, what do we do about this, which is legit. I mean, it's totally legit, by the way. People will tell you it's not, but it's totally legit to be concerned about that. And if other people saying this is just a blip, you know, look long term, that's what really matters. That's not wrong either. However, The problem I have is how certain everybody is in what is essentially a very uncertain area. We don't know how this is going to go. A lot of people think they know how this is going to go, but realistically, we do not know. So we're going to find out. You're going to find out. And meanwhile, why don't we start? We can start with coin market cap, and actually things are looking a little bit up, believe it or not. I always forget that. Hold on. There we go. So I mean, this we're actually popping back up in the last hour. Now I put in a trade that's actually below this, so I could take a teeny little bit of profit. But I got my sights set a little higher, so I'm willing to let it ride. It can go to zero. I'll be okay with that. And Ethereum at 1500. It's been a while since it's been that low. Although Ethereum just hasn't been. I think Ethereum's days might be over, to be honest, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Let's take a look. I do like that you can just straight up pull up the trading view on here. Yeah, it's kind of incredible because I somehow caught like this little flash crash right here. I bought about 77.8. Oh wait, that wasn't it. Where was it? Yeah, it must have been around. Are we on the 4 hour? No, we're on the daily chart. Well, that's why. I always do everything. Okay, there we go. Now we're on the, oh, I gotta move it over. Hold on. So you guys can see here. That makes more sense. I was like, that's the chart not making any sense. Yeah, so it actually got lower than that, but I bought it around here. So I'm actually up a teeny little bit, but we actually flashed up to 78.6, which is interesting. Why don't we put our indicators on to show where we are? We're gonna, by the way, we're gonna look at all these other ones too. Give me a second. So usually this is where the pump is. So that's why you're seeing the pump up. Now I don't know how high that's going to go though, because we actually went under that Bollinger Band, which is around when I bought. It was, yeah, probably around here, and I was thinking, oh yeah, we're at the bottom of the Bollinger Band. We have very low RSI. RSI actually went lower. And look what happened. Look what happened back. Let me move this over for you guys. Look what happened back here. Really low RSI, and then we have a huge pump up. So I think, and I hit the last one. I hit, wait, hold on. There we go. I actually hit this one, hit this little trade. It wasn't even on the very bottom either. Maybe I hit it. I might have actually put it in here, and then it ended up here. So bought it like 81 something and sold at 84. So there's trades you can make. Now, it might be more difficult if we're on the way down because we might not hit as high. In fact, if I see this go to 80, I might just close it out early and take the small win versus gambling. This is trading, this is like, I'm just kind of playing around with trading right now. I think it's kind of fun. I think it's fun to put this little theory to the test, because from what you've seen, and people have pointed this out, and I think it's been largely right, it's a matter of degrees, right? Usually when you hit the bottom of the Bollinger Band and your RSI is below this 30 level, or even close to it, even touching on it, you tend to get like a pump up. Now, it might not be the biggest pump up, but every single one is a few thousand in terms of Bitcoin. So you could expect this for other stuff too. So I wouldn't necessarily dismiss what's going on here. I would pay attention to this. I just realized I can't see the numbers, but there we go. So that there's some opportunities here. Like I said, I could actually close it out right now and make a teeny tiny amount of profit. probably just over my my fees. But anyway, that's Bitcoin right now. Let's go back to, let's see what else is going on. Let's see what's doing real in the last hour. Fart coin, of course. Jeez, stupid fart coin. Yeah, I don't even know what's going on with that. Sonic, Hyperliquid. I heard the first thing I heard about Hyperliquid was apparently some big scam or controversy with them. I don't even know what that was all about. I kind of forgot it already. And then Caspa's up there. XRP, you know, looking good on the hour, but down overall. I mean, we were in the low twos, so yeah. Think about these charts. There's not going to be a whole lot that is there's not gonna be a whole lot that's like exciting or happy. There's not a lot of good news in the charts today. This is us trying to find. Yeah, here's Algorand at 16 cents. I tried to make a trade on Algorand and I missed it. But the problem is I'm doing it on chain and Tiny Man doesn't yet have, apparently, as far as I can tell, doesn't yet have limit orders, but they're adding it soon, and that will be really fun to play around with a little bit of trading. Otherwise, yeah, Ondo. So everything's kind of a lot of the crypto is kind of pumping up, as you can see in the last hour. The Farcoin's even doing good over 24 hours. The best one is something called Grass. It just worked its way into the top 100. Like I said, Farcoin over 20. Caspa is actually up over the last day. 4 story. So you're seeing a lot of, when you see chaos like this, a lot of times you see new coins coming into the market, which I think is pretty interesting. And by the way, if you're just joining us, please hit the like and subscribe button. And if you're watching us on Twitch, we just launched our Twitch channel and are going to try that out, do a little experiment there. I'm always doing the experiment in crypto and outside of crypto. So if you're on Kick, give us a shout out from Kick, and if you're on Twitch, give us a shout out from there. I just want to see like which one, if I get more traction on Twitch, maybe I'll switch over to Twitch. I really like Kick's monetization scheme, but it kind of doesn't matter if you can't get subscribers. And I think Twitch might be big enough that there could be room for crypto. So we'll see. But yeah, not a lot looking. Oh, PayPal has its own USD. I didn't even know that. But yeah, not a lot to be excited about. If you look at the CoinMarketCap 100, that's all time since December of the very end of December in 2023. So that's how long this has been around, and it's up overall, so that's fun. But yeah, over the last day, kind of take a little bit of a bloodbath here. 6.11%, 6.2% essentially. Not a lot to be excited about unless you're thinking in terms of buying opportunities. Maybe there's a coin you've been wanting to get into but haven't, it's been oversold. Well, now might be the time. Same for stocks. It's probably a good time. We're going to talk more about that later, but it's probably a good time to get into stocks too. A lot of the favorites are way down in price, like way more than the index as a whole. Yeah, so we've dipped into that extreme fear territory. Oh, you can't see this. Hold on a second. We have dipped into this extreme fear territory, which the last time we did, Bitcoin was a little bit higher than it is right now. Wait, what is that? Is that Bitcoin price? Oh, I see. This is the fear. Okay, they got it backwards. All right. Yeah, basically both times it dipped below 80. That's when people are getting panicky, which is kind of interesting, right? I don't know, because why is 80 the arbitrary number? But I think it feels something about under 80 feels like, oh, this isn't good, It's interesting. It's funny how much lower Bitcoin was here, but greed was much. We were actually in the greed territory back in March, which is wild. And then we were in November again too. But that made more sense because Bitcoin was much much higher, and then it started going up, and then fear and greed went down. I find this behavior really fascinating. It's like it's just not good enough right now. But I don't. Also don't blame markets for being fearful because markets don't like certain uncertainty. They just don't. That's not what they like. Let's check up on some of our utility coins, and then we'll dive deeper into Algorand. But let's look at Hedera. 14 cent Hedera. Here's the monthly view. That's, you wonder why we're in fear territory. The funny thing is, community sentiment still very bullish on Hedera. But I always wonder, like, what does that mean? How do they derive that? Because prediction for April. Oh, I see. You can make your own prediction. Is that why it's bullish? People making high predictions. Some people are saying this is a dead cat bounce, by the way, this little bit, which we see, that we're probably going down further. And we'll look at the overall markets too, but yeah, we were over 20 cents. I mean, we're kind of having a little battle between Algorand and Hedera, which one would be worth more. And now we're kind of going the other way. Let's look up XRP. So if you look at the same monthly chart, it's kind of it was a steeper drop. By the way, I would say if there's some lows that you're looking at that you're like, oh, I wish I had bought XRP at this price, it's probably not a bad idea to put in a limit order, like a buy order into those really low, because you never know, we might flash hit it. If you were saying like $1 XRP sounds pretty good to me, yeah, put that limit order in. Put the order in, and if it hits it, we'll sell. Definitely something to think about. And it's funny we're looking at all this, but it's like it's not really, because I think, generally speaking, like you can see the patterns. The patterns really hold between all the coins. You don't see a lot of variation in that typically. They vary by degree a little bit. Although Bitcoin's popping up more than XRP is right now. Well, hold on. Are we? Oh, we're on a day. I wish it would default to 4 hours. Oh yeah, no, this is looking much better. So here your Bollinger Band play would have. The thing what happens sometimes is that it kind of falls down the Bollinger Band line, and sometimes it like when I see this is going to spring back when you have the RSI this low. So what you can do sometimes, you can either play it as is, if I see $1.90, okay, I'm going to buy it at $1.90, and I'd be almost caught up. Or I can say, I think it's going to get a little lower first. I'll put my buy order in at a little bit lower, and then when we get this flash up, I'll be doing all right. So you can sometimes catch these dead cat bounces and make a profitable trade. Like I said, I'm not like a huge trader. Most of my stuff is long, so this is all kind of a little experiment I'm working on. But it seems to really hold up when you get these opportunities where you have really low RSI and you have the chart at the bottom of the Bollinger Band. It tends to pop up pretty readily. So, all right. Well, we can look at SWI next, and this is probably the last one before we switch over to Algorand. And we'll do the same thing. We'll pull up the monthly, pull up trading view. Again, the pattern looks almost identical. I wish it would remember 4 hours. Interbands, RSI. Yeah, let's see what we got here. Yeah, I mean, same story, same story. A huge crash down, and then we're popping back up. Almost identical to XRP with the RSI going hitting that 20. So what you see with some of these, if it's around the 40 line, you might not get that big a pump up. But when it starts hitting below 30, you almost get a huge one. So we try to look for those actually as much as possible. Try to hit where that relative strength index hits just below 30 at least, and you're probably going to be able to catch a nice little pump up. But the thing you don't know, like when I was here, because I think I made my Bitcoin trade around here, so you have a little more to go. Sometimes that happens. Wouldn't be a bad idea to split it, do one here, but so that's Sui Network, and Sui has been one of the stronger performers. Not lately, obviously, but let's go back to the normal view here. If we zoom out a year, I mean, yeah, we were up over $5. I mean, I took some crazy profit. Cleaned Out says I've been buying algo for long term here. Yeah, and you know it's really important. I think that brings up a really good point, Cleaned Out, because there's like a few different ways to look at this, right? So what I'm talking with these trades, this is like micro focused, right? So there's kind of a extremely short term, and that's trading, and then there's kind of a people like a lot of what I do is probably like a midterm, like a cycle focused approach. So I'm buying. This is what the year perspective is maybe showing, if not even more. In fact, let me zoom out. We'll just use SWI. So I'd probably be buying around here, you know. 2023, good time to buy a lot of different assets. I was buying SWI in here. That might have been a little later. I think it was actually here that I was buying SWI. But a lot of coins I was buying in here. And so when we got here, I was way in profit. So I started taking some profit for sure. Now that's a different strategy than I'm just going to hold on to this forever. That's like a long-term hold, which is not a bad thing to do. I mean, that's a choice, right? It kind of depends on your risk profile, your time horizon, what you want out of crypto. And I have plenty of like long-term plays and stocks, so I don't feel the need to do that for crypto, except for once the cycle is over, I think my Bitcoin strategy is going to be a long-term hold. And then I guess Algorand's technically a long-term hold because I use it for DeFi. I don't really usually trade much with it, or I don't even like buy and hold to sell for in bull runs and stuff. Cleaned Out says, yeah, people forget to zoom out. Bear market is the best time, and most retail does not. And like I said, yeah, it depends on what it depends on what you're looking at. So that's a legit strategy. For people who are like my stocks, I'm less worried about it because I'm not planning to touch any of that stuff for a long time. Unfortunately, since I switched over to being an entrepreneur, I don't really have a lot of dry powder to be investing, and now would be a really good time to be putting money into the stock market. So that there is some downsides to that, but like the COVID crash, I kept investing, and that was when my portfolio hit like some real benchmarks. Let's just say that. I don't want to talk too much about the details, but yeah, I hit a benchmark I was not expecting to hit for a while, and I hit it very quickly because I was investing during that big V-shaped dip that we had, and I had less money because I was still working a job and we had furloughs, and I was not making as much money in that time, but I was still making more than I earned, which has always been my goal. Also, my name's not Frugal BC for the fun of it. You know, I'm pretty careful about how much I spent. So, yeah. Well, why don't we pull up Algorand? So I like to go to Vestige for that. I really like their platform here, and we're gonna move this. Yeah, boy, if you could have caught something down here. We're actually up over 17 cents now, so popping back up. Nice to see, get a little V there. Yeah, let's put our bands in here. And, same story. Like I said, the patterns, you just find all the patterns for crypto, they almost all look the same. There's some counter indicators sometimes, but they almost all look the same. They all follow the same pattern. And, talking about ranges, that is important because most of my crypto, my portfolio is still in profit, by the way. My Algorand holdings are still in profit because I was buying. Let's zoom out. Let's go to the weekly chart. It's going to ruin my RSI. No, it isn't. So I bought around here. I bought here. I bought in this range. A lot. I bought a lot in this range right here. Can I make like a thing? No, I can't. So cleaned out, so still lower high, but not bad. But again, zoom out. This was November. We were at 10 cents. Early November, we were at 11 cents. So lower high or higher low. Vasa is basically dead in bull market. No need for fortune teller. No, it's dead. All crypto is the same. 1 or 2 cycles and dies. No one cares. Everyone talks about new vapor. Says Mad Lurker. I don't know about that. We'll see. XRP isn't, and it's been around for more than 2 cycles. But we can also look at this, and this isn't very promising. So I don't know. Is this the start of something bigger? Do we still have that? And well, we don't know. Here's one thing we don't know yet. We don't know how really challenging macro conditions affect crypto, because every cycle we've had so far, we've had pretty favorable macro conditions. So if you look back at the bull run happened in the last cycles, 2021, 2017, conditions were pretty good. Things were pretty good for crypto. So I wouldn't be so sure that it won't impact it. We just really don't know. And so far, it's definitely had some issues. So we'll see about that. All right. Well, actually, before we do that, let's see what the stock market is doing. Down just a teeny little bit today, but not the bloodbath I think a lot of people might have been expecting. There's what the 5-day looks like. The monthly chart does not look good. I mean, good God, we're heading up and then just off a cliff. We're even down on the 6 months. Definitely year to date. We're seriously down over a year. Even on the 1-year chart. Ty Kim says, good morning, Frugal Kimchi. Hey, Kimchi, what's going on? BTFD. I'm always so confused by acronyms. Thursday we'll find out if Paul is still wait and see. Zoom out his third pump and dove. What do you think happens in cycles? Obviously. Again, I made profit. I bought in at 50 cents and I sold at $2. Oops, I don't want to do that. Thursday we'll find out if Paul is still wait and see. Yeah, we will find out. That will be very interesting. Now we're up on the 5-year, so sometimes that's good to keep perspective. Yeah, I remember 2010. We had some kind of down times in 2022 as well, so you have to keep that in perspective sometimes. But that's a pretty big drop. This is a pretty historic drop. And one thing I do find irritating is people are saying, like, I think people are trying to treat this like a class issue and saying that this is going to help the working class. So the heck with the stock market. Well, the stock market impacts people. Here we go. Stock market down, tanks over 1,000 points. S&P 500 eyes bear market. According to Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg live stock futures pair declines. Futures pair declines as traders boost Fed rate cut bets. Yeah, who writes these headlines? Trump tariffs. Will Trump call a timeout as billionaire backers S&P 500 plead? Let's see what this has to say. S&P 500 is nosediving, entering a third day in high-profile backers voicing criticism. Pressure is mounting on President Trump to hit the pause button before escalation of reciprocal tariffs takes effect on Wednesday. So these aren't even in effect yet, by the way. So far, Trump hasn't given any sign of wavering on tariffs, hailing the billions of dollars a week being raised from abusing countries in a Monday morning post. But a pause may be likely based on Trump's prior behavior and because it would be easy to spin as a win. A pause would allow time for negotiations after top White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett said Sunday that more than 50 countries have offered to bring down their trade barriers. We're going to zoom out a little too, and we're going to look at some other perspectives, but let's start with this. Trump tariffs. Trump on Wednesday. The Trump's reciprocal tariffs announced on Wednesday were scheduled to take effect in two steps. First step on April 4th was a 10% tariff on almost all trading partners. The next step will ratchet up Trump tariffs on trading partners alleged to be abusive. With that next step, the across-the-board tariff imposed on China this year would jump from 30% to 54%. The tariff rate would jump from 10 to 20 for the European Union, 24% for Japan, 46% for Vietnam, 26% for South Korea, 32% for Taiwan, and 27% for India. Honestly, I don't think these make a lot of sense. The China one, I get because China really royally screws us over. Oh, by the effing dip, yeah. Says Kimchi. Well, that's one of the questions. Are you buying the dip or are you catching a falling knife? But if your strategy is long term, you might not care about that. It all depends on what your time horizon is and what you're looking at. So buying algo might make sense for me because I'm mostly buying it for DeFi anyway. I'm not really like buying it to sell later unless, if my portfolio was in the hundreds of thousands, maybe I would. By the way, I'm going to take a little break. I just want to see if anybody is... I'm doing this new experiment on Twitch to see if anyone wants to watch me there. I don't know if they do or not. Don't know if they do or not. Just to see if anybody is watching. Don't know if they do or not. Just to see if nobody's really chatted or anything, so kind of doesn't look like it maybe. Nobody's really chatted or anything. We'll look at the stats later anyway. I think a lot of this doesn't make a ton of sense. Like China, I think we do need to be careful about China. What cycles? If you don't think there's cycles, you're not paying attention. Good grief. You don't even make sense. You don't even make any sense. I don't know why you're here, dude. Anyway. Kimchi S, are you doing full-time crypto and YouTube? Kind of. YouTube is not my main business. I guess crypto is not my main business. I have another business. So I did quit my job about a month ago. But I have another news business that I will be getting to after this. So I just wanted to experiment with trying a little earlier in the day and see how that goes. Plus, this stuff is like really hot on my mind and I wanted to get it out there. Yeah, I mean, you can complain about, you can say what cycles, but like I've timed them 3 times in a row now. I've made money 3 times in a row in crypto. So, as has so many other people, but you can pretend like it doesn't exist if you want, I guess. So the ones that don't make any sense is like for Vietnam, like they're a major trading partner. and we get value. The thing is, I think there's a miscalculation on the value. There's a miscalculation on the value because we trade with Vietnam. They produce a lot of inexpensive goods, and we get value from that. And technically, it's the same with China. The bigger concern about China is they're not like a really good partner. They steal IP. They don't allow they want us to use their tech companies, but they don't want to allow our tech companies. They've blocked like every social media from here, for example. They block Google. They block all these other things. And so it's really irritating to me. Algorand needs a voice that's consistent. Building now in this ecosystem will pay dividends. We root for you, Frugal. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. My base case is that Trump will need to back down in the coming days, but in a way that he can claim victory. Maybe. I don't know about that. We'll see. This wouldn't be the first time this year. Trump previously took a step back on February 3rd, announcing 30-day pause just a day after imposing blanket 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada. On March 6th, 2 days after his reprieve had expired, Trump narrowed 25% tariffs to imports that don't comply with U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, negotiated in his first term, largely exempting autos. Back in August 2019, Trump postponed a plan to impose 10% tariffs on the $160 billion in Chinese imports on consumer goods, including Apple iPhones, to avoid raising costs during the Christmas shopping season. Ackman and Musk disapprove. Over the weekend, billionaire investors Bill Ackman and Elon Musk were both were openly critical of the reciprocal Trump tariffs. Ackman asked Trump to call a 90-day timeout to negotiate deals, warning of an economic nuclear winter if he doesn't. In one post, Ackman says the plunging S&P 500 has made Trump's negotiating position untenable. Implication is that a pause would stabilize markets and strengthen Trump's hand. Tesla is among the biggest losers in the S&P 500 early Monday, diving about 5% after Wedbush analyst Stan Ives, among the biggest Tesla bulls, cut his price target for the stock from $315 to $550, but kept a buy rating. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing is, if this persists, this is going to turn against Trump. People are not going to be happy about this. Among the troubling financial market signs on Monday is that 10-year Treasury yield is rising 5 basis points, even as equities sell off hard. In other words, long-term Treasuries aren't looking like a safe haven at the moment. That has negative implications for funding federal deficits and may add pressure to Trump to hit the pause button. I liked what he was doing on a lot of other stuff. I thought it was probably a good idea to make government a little more efficient. I don't think that was a bad thing at all. Maybe some of the ways that he went about it weren't maybe the best, but like the All In Pod had a great segment with one of the guys from Doge, who was a crypto hedge fund business analyst, had been a lifelong Democrat, had been a major donor to Democrat parties, and he was detailing what was going on with the border and the just sheer rise in Social Security numbers that were being issued to people, which then was leading some of those people to not only take advantage of services and kind of be a net drain on society, but also a lot of them were voting. So they've turned them over for prosecution in those states where they found them. He said it was really shocking to him. He did not expect to see that. I thought that was pretty interesting. When you listen to him, he's a very straightforward, data-focused person. And I thought that was interesting. Rick Play and Stop says, historical moment, people with liquidity are probably extremely happy. Yeah, I mean, if you have dry powder, but like I said, it depends on what time horizon you're looking at. In some ways, it's possibly trying to catch a falling knife. Well, I'm going to go to this other one, but before I do that, something else I wanted to look at really quick, and then we'll go. I've got a pro tariff post. So this was up. I wanted to look at Tiny because Tiny was up to almost 2.5%. Now, not so much. Came down a 2.5 cent. I mean, 2.5 cents. Not so much. This affects me a lot. The price of Tiny affects me a lot because my DeFi plays are all rooted in that. Yeah, biggest gainers. There's a gold down now. Interesting. Does that just match the price of gold? That's a very interesting chart. This looks like the alpha one. I wonder what's the alpha done. We are skipping around a little bit. Yeah, it's down a little bit, but this is one of the most fascinating charts to me because it's just like a flat line practically. I know people will say, well, it looks more like a caterpillar, but think about a caterpillar still, you could draw a straight line through it. This is kind of what it looks like. You know, it's kind of set around this 3.8 cent, a little shy of 4/10 of a cent, between 3 and 4/10 of a cent, and it's just sort of stayed here. It's kind of wild. So I'm actually in the middle of doing a little alpha arcade experiment because I bought a specific amount of alpha token because you get paid USDC rewards for holding the token, and that is based on the money they make in trading. So for those that don't know, Alpha Arcade is the prediction market built on Algorand. It's pretty fun to play around with. Anyway, I just wanted to go to that really quick. Okay, so this is from Anthony Pompliano, and he has a very specific view of the tariffs. I would call him, I don't know, should we listen to it? Maybe we'll listen to it.
Good morning, everyone. Everyone's prepared for a volatile week as the reality of U.S. tariff policy sets in. There have been plenty of negative reactions from investors and market participants, but it's important to stay focused on the signal rather than the noise. We can start with Stanley Druckenmiller, one of the best performing and well-respected investors in the world. He explained in a recent interview that tariffs are the lesser of two evils. You can watch the video that I've embedded in the letter. Druckenmiller mentions that 10% tariffs would be ideal level, and we obviously have much higher tariffs announced at the moment, so I'd expect intense negotiations between countries before the April 9th deadline for implementation. Regarding those negotiations, we learned that more than 50 countries have reached out to the White House to begin discussing potential solutions. And these countries are not showing up empty-handed to the negotiations. Take Taiwan as an example. The country is offering to remove all trade barriers with the U.S. and commit to zero tariffs moving forward. Taiwan will also increase their investment in the United States, including purchases of agricultural products, industrial products, energy, and weaponry from America. No tariffs, no trade barriers, and more capital headed to the United States. That seems like the ideal outcome, right? Speaking of ideal outcomes, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has been saying for weeks that the administration wants to get oil prices and the 10-year yield lower. Adam Kobisi points out both of those have been happening in recent weeks. Adam writes that the real plan all along was to lower interest rates and lower oil prices as soon as possible. The 10-year note yield is down 90 basis points and oil prices are down 25%. The tariffs are working as planned. But oil prices and the 10-year yield are not the only things falling. We are also seeing inflation continue to crash lower over the last few weeks. Trueflation shows inflation has gone from over 3% in December to 1.22% as of Sunday. This is the lowest level for inflation since November of 2020.
Yeah, it's too bad that the player doesn't like embed in the thing so I can pause it easy. But I did want to take a look at this because I've been noticing that inflation has decreased a lot. It's actually kind of surprising to me. So even as of May last year, we were still above 3%, which is outside of what the Fed typically targets. But since then, we dropped below 2, popped back up, and then now have really, really crashed. But we did that without the tariffs. I think it's important to note. So I don't think you can necessarily put that on the tariffs. Now, he did announce the tariff plan earlier, but he backed, like you said, like we covered, he backed away from it. So it's kind of we're actually hitting almost 1%. And I will say, I'd love to hear what you guys are seeing in your day-to-day lives, because when I when I look at when I go to the grocery store, a lot of the things I buy are like cheaper than they were a year ago. And that really started that started before Trump took office. But it's been getting more and more lately. I'm just kind of curious what you guys are seeing when you go to the grocery store, if that's had any impact or not. Because I've been a little bit surprised that I'm not seeing I'm seeing prices go down. I think that's really interesting. Okay, I'm gonna try to play that again.
This inflation number is important to keep an eye on for two reasons. First, this is a good reminder that the tariffs are not inflationary, rather, they are deflationary. Remember the timeline of what has transpired. Perplexity, my favorite AI search engine, shows the initial 10% blanket tariff on China was put in place on February 4th, and an additional 10% increase to the tariff was implemented on March 4th. The 25% tariffs were put in place on March 4th as well. So, although the US implemented tariffs of at least 20% on three of our largest trading partners, inflation has been going down for months. The falling oil prices are helping drive inflation down, but ultimately tariffs are deflationary, not inflationary. And second, if inflation keeps falling this aggressively, the Federal Reserve may be forced to make an emergency interest rate cut. I'm not predicting they are going to do that, but rather the odds increase as inflation falls further below their 2% target. The biggest issue the economy faces right now is economic slowdown. Odds of a recession are spiking. The Atlanta Fed's GDP now is falling, and investors are nervous. This all points to the importance of the Fed encouraging economic activity and employment by lowering interest rates. Maybe they do it in an emergency fashion, or maybe they do it in their next two meetings, but I expect interest rates to be lower by the end of the summer. Which brings me to the future. What do I think will happen over the coming weeks and months? Overall, I think we will look back at the fear in the market right now and realize it was an overreaction. Look at the fear and greed gauge sent out by BTIG, which I've included. This is exactly what blood in the streets looks like when on a graphic. I believe we will see the tariff rates negotiated down closer to 10% globally. Some countries will be higher, some will be lower, and some countries will end up with zero tariffs against them. Most of these countries will have to remove all tariffs and trade barriers against the US in order to have tariff rates reduced. We will also see as many countries commit to spending a large amount of money in the United States as well. Asset prices will bottom out in the coming month. We will likely see new all-time high prices in stocks and Bitcoin before the end of the year. There will be no high inflation, and we will not experience a crushing recession. Instead, this economic and global trade reset will lay the foundation for an economic boom. All Americans, both the wealthy and the working class, will get to participate, and the golden age of innovation and growth will be an incredible sight to see. It may be dark in the tunnel right now, but if you squint, you can see the light at the end. Be patient, and the light will get bigger in the coming days and weeks. Eventually, we will be out of the tunnel, and all will be good in the world. Study reflexivity. The faster we go down, the faster we go back up. It happened in 2020 during the pandemic, and it is going to happen again this year. Before I let you go, you're going to hear a lot of debate about free trade in the coming days. I believe the ideal situation is to have unfettered global trade between countries, which means no tariffs from either country in bilateral trade. The United States has been pretending for decades that free trade still exists. Other countries were more sober in their analysis and realized that they could levy tariffs, subsidize their producers, manipulate their currencies, and gain an advantage over America. This means the US had two choices. First, we could keep pretending the game didn't exist and let other countries take advantage of us. Or two, we could learn to play the game better than anyone in the world. We are rightfully choosing the second option. Free trade doesn't exist anymore. We can only hope that America can become so good at playing this new game that allows us to dictate a reset of rules back towards true free trade, where our trading partners participate on a level playing field. Throughout history, America has proven we can dominate any game we play. This may be the most important one yet. Hope you all have a great start to your week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, I want to go back through. Yeah, like I said, I appreciate the player. I thought it was kind of interesting to do it that way, but I kind of wish it would embed in the, what do they call that, where it sticks to the top of the page so I could react to this. First off, yeah, this inflation number is very interesting. And yeah, I guess I didn't realize that about the March tariffs. It's hard to keep track of some of these, but one thing I've heard in favor of the tariffs is Trump had imposed tariffs during his first term, and Biden didn't undo them like he did a lot of other stuff. He undid the border policies, like remain in Mexico, pretty much undid every border policy, but he didn't undo the tariffs, which is interesting. I'm just trying to find what I wanted to react to. I believe we will see tariffs negotiated down to 10% globally. I would put that at a big maybe. Possibly. I mean, some countries will be higher, some will be lower. Some countries will end up with zero tariffs against them. Well, I mean, some of these were, he doesn't address this in his story, but some of these were kind of bizarre. Like there was some country where some island that we imposed tariffs on that has nothing but penguins. Like there's no actual people on it. I don't know what's going on with that. It seemed to be done by a formula, and the formula was based on trade disparities, which I thought was really strange. Asset prices will bottom out in the coming months. You will see new all-time high stock prices in Bitcoin before the end of the year. Well, that would be nice. We'll see. I'm not 100% sure about this. There will be no high inflation, and we will not experience a crushing recession. Well, I mean, we'll see. I'm concerned about people that are this certain about things, because really, we just really don't know. The last time we had huge tariffs imposed was right before the Great Recession, or the Great Depression, and a lot of people believe that helped lead to the Great Depression. But also, we're in a really different place than we were then. I don't think people understand. One thing that people don't understand is that we've had a fairly stable monetary environment for the last 40 years. COVID aside, even look at COVID, like he mentioned that, where he talks about reflexivity. That's what happened in COVID. It was a V down and it was a V right back up. And actually 2008 technically kind of was too. It was a longer V, but if you look at it, it crashed and then it slowly worked its way back up over maybe a couple years. But this is one of the things I'm a little concerned about, because what happened in 2008, and I think people forgot about this, when the stock market crashed and a lot of other things crashed. And Matt Taibbi had a really good story about the housing market and why that could be a ticking time bomb right now because of what's happening with insurance. We can dive into that a little bit. But the market recovered in about 2 years, but actual economic health for the country took a lot longer. I was doing stories in 2010, 2011, 2012 about, there was a lot of like, I lost my job during this, now I'm trying to go back to school and do this, or there was a lot of like stories about how no one could find a job. And it was funny because it wasn't too long later. It was like the late 2010s. A lot of my stories started becoming about how employers couldn't find workers. Some people thought that was going to happen, that was supposed to happen actually a lot earlier, but a lot of boomers had to delay retirement because of the stock market. By the way, here's the thing on Kick. You get a lot of scam comments talking about how they can get you more followers, and then they give you their little Discord name. It's funny how many I get of those. I haven't gotten any on Twitch yet, but I just started on Twitch, so we'll see. I just put them out there. It's kind of funny because like I know I'll get like a ton of viewers if I go on X, but like right now I don't get anything for it. There's no monetization policy. I hope they add that. They were supposed to add monetization for videos, but so far it hasn't really materialized. But we're seeing this as part of the whole thing that I was talking about with trading. It really has to do with reflexivity. So when you hit that low RSI number and you're at the bottom of the Bollinger Band, there's a good chance you're going to pop back up and be able to make a positive trade. Debate about free trade. Oh man, do I have that somewhere? Yeah, I do. I do have that. Hold on. I think this is worth looking at, by the way. Oh, here it is. So this was from Wall Street Apes. This is in 1996. Nancy Pelosi talking about tariffs. Bernie talking about them in '08. Barack Obama in 2018, so pretty recently, and 1988 is Donald Trump saying it. So let's tune into this Nancy Pelosi one first.
How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit and loss of jobs for the American worker? And how much more dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo?
Man, Pelosi's all mega. Pelosi's all mega, 100% mega. She's like, let's go. Let's make America great again. Let's go after China. Kind of funny, isn't it? She brings out some charts, so let's...
As I mentioned, it's about jobs, proliferation, and human rights. And there are those who say we shouldn't link human rights and trade and proliferation and trade. I disagree. But if we just want to take up this issue on the basis of economics alone, indeed, China should not receive most favored nation status for several reasons that I'd like to go into now. I'd like to call the attention of our colleagues to this chart on the status quo that the business community is asking each and every one of us to endorse today. Right now, we have a $34 billion trade deficit with China, the 1995 figure. It will be over $40 billion for 1996.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I heard someone else talking about trade deficits and that being bad. Look at the jobs. Wait till she gets to that.
Since the Tiananmen Square massacre, this figure has increased 1,000%, from $3.5 billion then to about $34 billion now. In terms of tariffs, I think it's interesting to note that the average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%, whereas the average Chinese MFN tariff on U.S. goods going into China is 35%.
By the way, she was in her heyday in '96. Nancy Pelosi's still in Congress. It's almost 30. That was almost 30 years ago. It was like 29 years ago. That's how long she's been in there. At some point, I don't know. How do you do that for 30 years and just be like, yep, I'm going to keep doing this? But, we're going to talk about what happened. Why does she suddenly not care? Because she's my trading queen now. I made a lot of money following her trades. I wonder what she's doing now with all this downturn.
Is that reciprocal? On exports, China only allows certain industries into China, of U.S. Industries into China, and therefore only 2% of U.S. exports are allowed into China. On the other hand, the U.S. allows China to flood our markets with a third of their exports, and that'll probably go over 40%. And it's limitless because we have not placed any restriction.
See, the allowed part is the trouble. That's the trouble, right? Because some countries, like, we're going to have a trade deficit. With Vietnam or like Bangladesh, like they're a poor nation compared to us. So they're not going to buy expensive US stuff. Like, that's just a crazy expectation. Of course they're not going to. They can't afford it. But it's different when it's like, oh, we only allow you to export. You should not, you shouldn't be banning. If you're banning our stuff, then we should probably be reacting to that. But it is funny, and she makes some really good points. Funny thing, she could be making Trump's points right now.
In terms of jobs, this is the biggest and cruelest hoax of all. Not only do we not have market access, not only do they have prohibitive tariffs, not only are our exports not let in very specifically, but China benefits with at least 10 million jobs from U.S.-China trade. The president, in his statement requesting this special waiver, said that China trade supports 170,000 jobs in the United States.
Wreck Plane Stop says leeching from tax money. Actually, what she's leeching from isn't even tax money. It's from information. I mean, the reason why you can be successful following her trades is because she's got the inside scoop. And I've heard people say, well, it's already illegal. No, actually, it's not. It doesn't apply to Congress. There's nothing that says If you get information from a congressional hearing or from an update that you get as a congressional member, there's nothing that says you can't trade. There's a lot of people that want that to be illegal, but it's not. It's actually legal. She can do it. It's crazy. It's crazy that the same standard isn't applied to Congress people as it is to, people in a corporate boardroom. They're forbidden from trading on that info and they go to jail. But a Congress member, they can get all this inside info from a committee hearing and then they can front run it. So that's why it's like, if Nancy's investing in something, I'm going all in. I've done really well. My portfolio did like 50 or 60% up last year, something like that. It's crazy.
70,000 jobs, whereas our imports from China support 10 million jobs at least. Fact is that U.S.-China trade is a job loser. And one of the reasons that it is because first let me just make another point, and that is that our colleagues on the other side of this issue will say the trade with China, exports to China have increased 3 times in the last 10 years. They have. But they fail to mention that imports from China have increased 11 times, thereby leading to this huge trade deficit. The other issue, in addition, if intellectual property is a $2 billion, $3 billion loss, technology transfer is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. If you want to sell to China, your products into China, the Chinese insist that you open a factory there. They misappropriate your technology, open factories of their own, and then say to you, now we want to see your plan for export. That's as simply as I can say it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important point. They just will basically steal your intellectual property. Because stuff you can't do in the U.S., you can do it over there. You can just flat out rip off. I got the first pair of AirPods I bought, AirPods, it actually said it was as if I was buying Apple AirPods. And what I think they were doing is just knocking, manufacturing. So Apple says, yeah, we need 100,000 of these. So they fill the order, and then I think what they do is they just run off another batch of them, and then they just sell them. So I bought that through Wish, I think. It was $30. As far as I can tell, it was a pair of AirPods. It was a straight up pair of AirPods, but I was looking for little micro differences or something, because I was like, how am I getting these so inexpensively? It might even been less. It might have been $28 or something. Now I usually just buy the Chinese knockoffs. I don't buy the real AirPods. They're so you can spend $100 or you can spend $20, and I'm always losing them anyway. Yeah, I lost one. Here's what happened. I lost them in the snowstorm. It fell out. I just got done shoveling, and I was going to take my dog for a short little walk before staying inside for the night. I felt the AirPod fall off, but because everything was snowy and it was dark, could not find it. So I bought a new pair for $20, and I was walking my dog on a Saturday after 2 snowstorms. I saw the AirPod sitting in the neighbor's yard where right around the area where I dropped it. And I figured it would probably get shoveled when they shoveled the snow, and it would go into the yard. And there it was. So I picked it up and continued my walk. And then when I got home, I tried it out, and sure enough, it worked. Then I dropped the new one. I was making a bath, and I dropped the AirPod in the bath, and it didn't work. So then now I'm still using the old one $20 later. But that's why I buy the cheap ones. So anyway, that's Nancy Pelosi. Here's Bernie.
Further, what they have said is that we need to not worry about manufacturing in America, because what we should establish is a policy of unfettered free trade. We don't need tariffs. What we need is to allow corporate America the freedom to throw American workers out on the street, people who are making 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour, healthcare, pensions, throw them out on the street, because somehow, Madam President, we are going to create wealth in America and good paying jobs in America as we shut down plants, we move to China, corporations there pay workers 20, 30 cents an hour, and we bring the product back into this country. And anyone who goes shopping in a mall knows how difficult it is today to find the product made in America. But that is the philosophy. And I have to say,
Yeah, remember malls, by the way? This was 2008 when Bernie was talking about this. We still had malls. Now they're pretty much all gone. Kind of wild how that changes. I think I think we lost something too. I really do. I think we lost something when the malls disappeared.
In that regard, the champion, and he is honest on this one. Senator McCain has been criticized recently for not being the most honest candidate we have seen in terms of his ads and so forth. He has been honest on this one. He is the lead advocate of unfettered free trade. And that's an also important part of this right-wing ideology, that it is good for America that corporations can go to China and bring products back into this country.
Bernie sounded awfully mega.
When it comes to the international,
By the way, Twitter really has to work on their video plays. Like it's just so unintuitive.
comes to the international system of commerce and trade, it's legitimate for poorer countries to continue to seek access to wealthier markets. And by the way, wealthier markets, that's not the big problem that you're having. A small African country is sending you tea and flowers. That's not your biggest economic challenge. It's also proper for advanced economies like the United States to insist on reciprocity from nations like China that are no longer sold.
What? What did he say? Reciprocity for tariffs? Anyway, I find this fascinating. I'm not even taking a position. I just find it so funny that all these politicians made the same point that Trump is making, and now they're crapping on him for it. I think that's just wild.
Only poor countries to make sure that they're providing access to their markets and that they stop taking intellectual property and hacking our servers.
True.
What would you do differently, Donald? What would you do differently, Donald?
I'd make our allies, forgetting about the enemies you can't talk to so easily, I'd make our allies pay their fair share. We're a debtor nation. Something's going to happen over the next number of years with this country, because you can't keep going on losing $200 billion, and yet we let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not free trade. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. And, hey, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese people. I mean, you can...
By the way, I find it interesting how well-dressed everybody is in the audience. Like today, everyone would be in a t-shirt. And that was like 1988.
Respect somebody that's beating the hell out of you, but they are beating the hell out of this country. Kuwait, they live like kings. The poorest person in Kuwait, they live like kings. And yet they're not paying. We make it possible for them to sell their oil. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me, and I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Probably not. But I do get tired of seeing the country ripped off.
Why would you not?
I just don't think I really have the inclination to do it. I love what I'm doing. I really like it.
Also, it doesn't pay as well.
No, it doesn't. But, you know, I just probably wouldn't do it, Oprah. I probably wouldn't, but I do get tired of seeing what's happening with this country. And if it got so bad, I would never want to rule it out totally, because I really...
I guess he didn't rule it out totally. So anyway, I think this is really interesting, not because I don't even know that, I'm not even necessarily saying that's the right position. I've been pretty, what's the word? Skeptical of this whole thing. But I just find it interesting that all these politicians are treating this like he's the worst human in the world, and it's like the craziest idea when all of them were sharing it. All of them are sharing it once upon a time. Okay, well, anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed the live stream today. I thought it was kind of interesting. I just kind of wanted to talk about what markets we're doing and look at some of these different aspects of it, what it means. Again, I'm not, I think the best thing right now is to be skeptical, you know, not cynical and not overly, what's the word I'm looking for? Not overly optimistic either. I think it's kind of a mixed bag, and we'll see how it impacts. I hope Pomp is right. I really do. I would love him to be right, because that'll be good for me. That'll be good for everybody, but you never know. You just don't know until you actually get down to it. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And if you're watching on replay, thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button. Give a big shout out to our sponsors, Non-Fungible Domains. So if you want that .algo address, makes doing everything in Algorand so much easier. So please do check them out in the description. And big shout out to Marcus Aurelius. I actually got my Marcus Aurelius mug the other day. It's pretty cool. It's got a little saying on the back. I'm a big fan of that. So be sure to check that out. Otherwise, I'm Frugal BC. Stay safe out there.